of the youngest child of Bangabandhu and Bangamata, Sheikh Russel, born in the tumultuous days of the struggle for independence, was nipped in the bud by the assassin's bullets when he was merely a kid. Let the horrendous death of such an innocent heart never befall this earth. With a vow to build a safer planet for all the children, Bangladesh will observe October 18 as the Sheikh Russel Day every year. Sheikh Russel, the symbol of our indomitable spirit for freedom.
On behalf of the Information and Communications Technology Division of the Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, I welcome you all to this special discussion observing Sheikh Russel Day. The Sheikh Russel Day is annually observed by Bangladesh on 18th October to shed light on the brutal events of 15th August 1975, which resulted in the untimely death of little Sheikh Russel, and also to highlight the need to give better protection to children in Bangladesh and all across the world. Sheikh Russel was the youngest child of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangladesh's father of the nation and the first president of the Republic. On the fateful night of 15th August 1975, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was killed along with 17 of his family members by a group of disgruntled soldiers as part of a larger national and international conspiracy. Among those killed was a young boy of 10 years old named Sheikh Russel, who was only 2 months short of his 11th birthday. The tragic events of 15th August 1975 did not end on that fateful night. It continued with the travesty of justice which we had to experience through what was known as the Indemnity Ordinance, a law, a dark law, a black law by which the killers were given legal protection by first Khandakar Mushtaq Ahmed through an ordinance and then through an act of parliament and constitutional amendment by Bangladesh's first military dictator, General Ziaur Rahman. To discuss the events of 15th August 1975 and its brutal aftermath, and also to shed light on the need for better protecting children in Bangladesh and across the world, we have with us today Mr. Anisul Haq MP, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Law, Justice and Parliamentary Affairs. We also have with us Ms. Aroma Datto, Honorable Member of Parliament and a noted human rights campaigner. We also have with us today in the studio Professor Dr. Mizanur Rahman, a noted jurist and a former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission of Bangladesh. Along with our guests in the studio, we have with us joining online Dr. S.R. Subramania from the National University in San Diego, California, USA. But before I start our discussions, I would like for us to see a video message which has been sent to us by noted children's rights activist and the Nobel laureate Mr. Kailash Satyarthi.
Let me start by paying tribute to the memory of Sheikh Russel, who was brutally killed along with most of his family members, including his father, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, at a very tender age. This is the age when a child usually starts learning about himself and his surroundings. This is the time when a kid starts enjoying in whatever way he likes. This is the first phase of life. A child also spends time without any fear, sorrow or stress. But for Russel, this was the time when he had to be the unfortunate victim of brutal atrocity. This is so disgraceful and a shame indeed, because not even an innocent child like Russel could not escape the carnage intended to wipe out Bangabandhu and his legacy. The death of a child of any age is a profound, difficult and painful tragedy. And when a child is brutally killed so mercilessly as it happened in case of Russel, this is unacceptable. This is the crime against humanity. This cannot be tolerated. We have to end this menace. Sheikh Russel Day will be observed in Bangladesh. On this occasion, let us reaffirm our commitment to end this evil, the violence against children in all its forms. We have to pledge that we will do our best for the betterment and well-being of our children, because they are all our children across the globe. Let us stand by them to fulfill their dreams, their aspirations, and their rights. Let us make our world the safest place for them to live. If one single child is in danger, if one single child is killed or facing violence like this, we cannot call ourselves civilized and cultured. No child should have the fate of Sheikh Russel in any place of the world.
We were listening to the video message sent by the Nobel laureate Mr. Kailash Satyarthi on Sheikh Russel Day. I would now like to turn to our studio guests, starting with Professor Dr. Mizanur Rahman. Sir, you may have noticed that Mr. Satyarthi described the events which resulted in the death of Sheikh Russel as a crime against humanity. Do you see the events of 15th August 1975 and its aftermath as the crimes against humanity?
Well, thank you. You see, murder has always been a crime in human history. Even if you talk of a primitive society, even in primitive society, where there is nothing known as law, as a science, even then killing a person was an offense, which was disliked by the society. And you had immediate recourse to justice in the sense that you had blood for blood, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and that was the justice of the day. But the mechanism of providing justice to the victim or the victim's family, that was there even in the primitive societies. So, you see, later on we talked about vendetta, and vendetta is nothing but then again, it's an avenging the death of a person, whether lawful or unlawful was not the question, because anything which is not done with the sanction by the state, that was a murder, and that was always considered to be a crime under law. And today, we have reached a stage in international criminal law, in jurisprudence, when we say that there are certain crimes which are known as international crimes. And for international crimes, there is no time bar, there is no limitation, and there is no jurisdictional limitation as well, which means that any state, a member of the international community, has the jurisdiction to try such offenses. And the killing of Sheikh Russel, a 10-year-old boy, an innocent person, I think it goes beyond saying that it falls under the category of crimes against humanity. Sometimes politicians, diplomats, certain states, they try to justify or, they put forward certain arguments. I won't say justify, but they try to put forward arguments that, well, there had been killings here and there in the world in the 20th century, but those were because of political reason. Political killings. And as a matter of fact, political offenses were often outside the ambit of international law, in the sense that they were outside the ambit of extradition even. I'm pretty sure that we'll talk about it a bit later. But the point that I want to make is, think of a person, of a child of 10 years old. What political considerations could be there for killing a child of 10 years when he was asking the killers, I want to go to my mother. Please let me go to see my mother. The mother was already slain. The father was slain. The brothers and sister-in-laws were slain. The domestic aides were brutally murdered and killed. And this innocent boy wanted to go near the mother. And the killers took him and then shot him to death. What a butchery. What a horrendous crime was committed on the 15th of August 1975. So you see, but unfortunately, now we are in Bangladesh in a situation where we have the possibility of observing, and paying homage to not only Sheikh Russel but all those victims of the horrendous event that took place on the 15th of August 1975. But what about the international community? What about the different states and governments? Did they ever raise voice against the killing of this innocent child of 10 years old? So, at times it appears that even empathy is selective. Empathy is selective because of political considerations. So, do we have the same kind of empathy for the children who have been killed and bombarded in Palestine? Do we have the same kind of empathy and sympathy for the children in Syria, in Somalia, in Haiti, or elsewhere? Did we have the same kind of sympathy for the children who were brutally killed in 1971 during the bloody birth of Bangladesh? Why not? Because political considerations sometimes overweigh and outweigh other humanitarian considerations, and that is a pity. That is weakness of the hitherto existing international law. But I'm happy, and I'm sure that the Minister for Law would probably vouch me also, that international law has also, is much more civilized today than it used to be some 50 years back. And today we are in a situation when we have the Child Rights Convention. The Child Rights Convention which protects the interests of the child. And not only this, before the international community thought of the Child Rights Convention, it was again the father of the nation in Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who gave us the Children's Act of 1974, 15 years ahead of international community. And that, the Children's Act of 1974, that provided special privileges, rights and protection to the children of the country. And that subsequently we saw that almost in toto the philosophy and the jurisprudence of the Children's Act of 1974 was adopted and borrowed by the international community, and we can see its reflection in the United Nations Children's Convention of 1989. So that was the beginning that we had. But such a misfortune that just a year after the adoption of the Children's Act of 1974, the youngest child, the son of the father of the nation, was brutally killed by those, and we didn't see empathizers or sympathizers, in the name of the great powers, those who always sort of impose themselves and pose themselves as the guarantors and the spokesperson of human rights in the world.
Thank you, Professor Mizan. That was very informative. And taking cue from what you said, what struck me as being terrifying was that the killers felt the need to kill a child of that age. What could be behind the mind which operates like that? And on that cue, I would like to go to our Honorable Law Minister. And here, I'm sure our viewers already know, but still I would like to remind them that our Honorable Law Minister was a prosecutor who actually was involved in the process of seeking justice for the brutal events of 15th August 1975. And here, Honorable Minister, my question to you would be more from your prosecutorial experience. What could have motivated the killers to go after children and family members, female members of the family, even who had nothing to do with politics?
Thank you. First, I would like to pay my respect to the martyrs of 15th August 1975, including our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and of course Sheikh Russel. You see, the thing is that Sheikh Russel's only fault was that, if alive, he was a potential leader of Bangladesh, and that is why they thought that they could not take the risk of keeping him alive. I'd just narrate the scenario that took place on the 15th of August, leading to his killing. You see, first Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's eldest son, Sheikh Kamal, was killed, and then the killers went upstairs in his residence at road number 32, Dhanmondi residential area, and they and the group had brought Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman to the staircase, and they were asked. They were taking him somewhere, so he asked that, "Where are you taking me?" Suddenly, another group was going upstairs, and when he asked this question, they did not answer. They answered through bullets and killed him. Then they got Begum Fazilutunnisa Mujib, the wife of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangamata, and when she saw, and this is one of the remarkable things that I have heard, when she saw the dead body of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, she said, "I'm not going anywhere, you have to kill me here." And she did not move. Later on, she was taken to the room where, along with her two daughter-in-laws and her son Sheikh Jamal were killed. Sheikh Russel was taken downstairs along with a servant of the house, and he was in the line, and at that point he said that I would like to go. He was crying and he wanted to go to his mother. How very tragic it is that the killers then exchanged words amongst themselves and said that take him to his mother, knowing fully well that his mother has been killed. They laughed at his saying that I want to go back to my mother, and they took him there and killed him. That is how tragic it was. Now, you see, when such a thing happens, the perpetrators are thought not as humans, but they become wild animals. I think even wild animals would be ashamed of this kind of people. And that is how Sheikh Russel was killed. Thereafter, that was only the unfolding of one tragic event. On the 20th, as you said, on the 26th of September 1975, a law was enacted saying that, and it was called the Indemnity Ordinance, and it said that the killers of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and his family members will never be questioned in a court of law and will never be tried for the offense that they have committed. And they said that it was of historical necessity. So, you see, in one word, we can say that it was the murder of innocence. And today, I must mention this, that we are observing 18th October as Sheikh Russel Day. 18th October happens to be his birthday. We want to make sure, as Professor Mizan has said, that such kind of crime is never done again. I say done because it does not happen. These things don't happen. It is done. It is a deliberate thing. And that is why we want to send the message to the entire world. We, meaning the people of Bangladesh, we want to send the message to the people of the world that we have suffered such kind of tragedy. We have suffered such kind of pain. We have seen the family cry, not only in pain, also in shame. And the thing is, we cannot allow this to happen again and to be done again in this world. We want that Sheikh Russell's memory should live, and in death, he should be the ambassador of peace.
Thank you, Honorable Law Minister. I'm sure we have a lot more to learn from you and your experience in these matters. But before that, we have to take a short break. We'll be back. Welcome back to our special discussion observing Sheikh Russel Day. I would now like to go to our guest, Ms. Arama Dotto, a member of parliament and a human rights campaigner. So you heard what the Honorable Law Minister was saying about the brutality of the events that took place. Being a father to 3 young children, it was horrifying for me to even listen and contemplate the terror which must have gone through that child's mind at that time. From a human rights perspective, from someone who has worked for children all her life, how do you see the events of 15th August?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to pay my deep tribute to our beloved Sheikh Russel, who is the symbol of youth, peace, and happiness. It's so difficult to absorb till today on this heinous murder of a little child, because he happened to be the son of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He had to be killed by the anti-liberation force to diminish the father of the nation and his family, the coming leadership. And it was so difficult what our Honorable Minister has just mentioned. The little child falling over the blood of his mother. A hyena would have spared. And we think about this horrendous moment, just think about that moment when he was taken to his mother and other dead bodies, dead bodies of his sister-in-laws and his brother were all in blood of pools. He was telling them, please take me to my sister Hashuappa, because he thought that is the only place where he could be saved. They just did not spare a single second. They just shot the little child. I just want to ask every conscious citizens of Bangladesh how they will stop violence against children, because this is killing innocent children is a gross violation of the International Convention on Child Rights. And Sheikh Russel, who is a symbol of, as I say, the budding leader, he was the center of happiness in the family of Bangabandhu. He was a small little school-going child who wanted to see the sky. He wanted to fly kites. And before he could fly kites, he was on the floor of blood, soaked with blood, because he happened to be the future leader of Bangladesh. And this is something which I considered that our Honorable Prime Minister, the charismatic leader, who did this trial, unique trial, in a very democratic process by eliminating the indemnity law through the parliament, not taking any special route of private trial. And because Bangabandhu was the leader of the people, Sheikh Russel was the symbol of the people, he is the son of our soil, and she made sure that no special law will be enacted for doing the trial of the killers. So today I would like to say that we have obligation. We all have the obligation as proud citizens of Bangladesh that to protect all children and observe Sheikh Russel Day as the day of children, where our nation builders, as nation builders. And they are the symbol, and he will be, and he is considered as one of the nation builder. And as I mentioned earlier, he is symbol of youth, he is symbol of prosperity, he is symbol of peace, happiness. This is how I would like to pay my tribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dotto, for your comments. Would now like to join our online guest, Professor S.R. Subramania, for an international perspective. Professor, my question to you is, are children around the world safe? Because we are not only discussing the events of 15th August 1975 in Bangladesh, but we have seen, even in the last few years, there have been many instances where children en masse have been killed in some of the grossest violations of children's rights globally. So let's take the example of 6 October 2022, which is just a few days ago. And in Thailand, a former policeman entered a daycare center and killed 34 people, including 23 children. We have seen such mass violation, mass killings of children in as civilized a place as, say, Norway, where the far-right terrorist Anders Breivik killed 69 mostly teenagers in a summer camp. From Beslan, Russia, to the killing of children by the Taliban in Pakistan, we see these instances throughout the world. So I would like your perspective on the killing of Sheikh Russel, as well as these instances of such blatant violence against children all across the world. Are we failing our children?
Thank you very much for having me. I am really honored, and I also feel that it's my duty to be part of any such event. It's a duty of any civilized person anywhere in the world to participate and give feedback, thoughts in a very meaningful way, which will contribute to the safety of children, and in addition, safety of every living human being. Now, I think some of the points alluded by the other guests have been so valuable and so important. In my opinion, Sheikh Russel's little flame might have extinguished by the barbaric acts of the perpetrators, but may the little flame which was extinguished in the form of the body may rage into a big flame, an inferno in terms of the spirit, and may there never be such atrocities. We hope and pray. And not only that, we should work actively towards that. And this annual event is the right step in that direction. And because as the famous quote goes, those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. So we should not forget such events. We should keep reminding the generations and the younger generations again and again, because those who lived in the 70s, I was in school, and I remember reading all the events leading up to the liberation of Bangladesh and these tragic events. And the younger generation may not be connected in the same way as we were connected at that time. So through these kinds of events, and probably through some documentaries and perhaps movies, we have to make the younger generation be aware that such barbaric acts were really done. It's not real fiction. It really happened. And so that they're aware, they're kind of connected, and they work actively to kind of avoid any such barbaric acts anytime in the future. Not just for the kids. Kids are important, and for any living decent human being anywhere in the world. So we call ourselves civil societies. Human civilization started about 10,000 years ago, but these acts are such blots and black spots in the history of human civilization. So So we have to actively ensure that these things do not happen in the future. And these kinds of events go a very long way in educating the youth and also the grown-ups so that they take active steps. It's not wishful thinking. We have to work actively so that these things do not repeat in the future.
Professor, would you say that the world is doing enough in terms of protecting children?
No, there is a long way to go. As you yourself gave some recent events, it's not restricted to a particular place. It's kind of appearing to be a global problem. And somehow, if you go into the heart of this why, this is my personal opinion. It's because there are some sick minds in the society. So we have to really address them. It's only via education. And, sometimes the parents don't do their job. Sometimes the schools don't do their job. Sometimes the society at large doesn't do its job. So we have to take into account this entire ecosystem. And education, the good education should come from parents, extended family, friends, grown-ups, schools, and of course, government should facilitate. So we can't have, government can go only so far, but it's our duty as fellow citizens to make sure in whichever way possible, to have this kind of awareness about these things. So this should not be forgotten. We should have, people are so engaged in their daily events, these social media and so on. So we should have some kind of injection of these good thoughts and good ideas and reminders so that people are engaged in a very positive way. And so this particular event, it should not be just one event in the year like Russel Day. That's an excellent thing, but it should be a daily injection, like you're taking a daily dose of some good medicine or good vitamins. So there should be a little dose every day, so that every day should be a Russel Day. Every day should be standing up against these atrocities, against children, and against decent human beings at large, any part of the world.
Thank you, Professor Subramania, joining us from San Diego, California. Viewers, it's time for another break. We'll be back soon. Welcome back to our special discussion on Sheikh Russel Day. We were discussing the legal framework which was used by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina when she became Prime Minister of Bangladesh for the first time in 1996. Let me go back to our Honorable Law Minister, who was part of the justice process, which ultimately saw this, most of the killers at least, brought to justice. So my question to you is, how was this legal process special? Why was this particular process special? And I would also like you to address the point of some of the killers still absconding. Some of the killers who were sentenced in those processes, confirmed by the highest court of the land. We know they are fugitives in foreign lands. What are we doing about getting them back?
Thank you very much. The first thing is that the trial process was very protracted, in the sense that, you see, because in 1975, as I mentioned earlier, that on the 26th of September 1975, the indemnity ordinance was passed, which basically meant that the killers would not be tried. Later on, it was given constitutional validity without being discussed in Parliament, and therefore there was a perception that this trial cannot be held. The other thing on the side was that the killers were sponsored by this then government of the country, I wouldn't say the state, by the government, and they were given lucrative jobs abroad and also given the opportunity to do politics in Bangladesh. So there was also a fear factor that such trial cannot be held. I'm saying that there was a perception that the indemnity ordinance was a bar to the trial, was because of the fact that, you see, the indemnity ordinance had two paragraphs. One was giving the killers the indemnity, and the other was the condition which will allow them to avail of the indemnity. The condition was that they would have to get a certificate from the president of the country that they were involved in this crime, and that certificate would allow them not to be held responsible for it. But none of them were given that certificate. So, if we are talking on legal terms, we could have held the trial earlier. Unfortunately, not even a case was lodged for 21 years. Bangabandhu's daughter, our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, came to power for the first time in 1996, and then on the 2nd of October 1996, a case was initiated. The case, there were very unfortunate happenings within that period. For example, you see, we had finished the case in the trial court. I must mention that at that point of time, my father was the chief special prosecutor of the case. We finished, and the trial court had found the killers guilty. They were convicted and sentenced to death. When in our country, it is if the trial court sentences somebody to death, then it is automatically transferred to the appeals court for confirmation. It's not an appeal, it's for confirmation. So it had come to the High Court. The killers who were present, not absconding, who were in captivity, they had also appealed. The High Court heard that appeal, and this is where the sad part is, that you see, this was a murder in daylight. It was not something that people hadn't seen, and the killers had also very much claimed that they have done this heinous crime. They have committed this heinous crime. But unfortunately, we found that 7 judges of the High Court division were embarrassed to hear this trial. That sad chapter will remain in the history of the country as a very black chapter. Then there was a change of government in 2001, and the trial was stopped. So again, we find that a government is giving sanction to the killers rather than trying a crime which had as victim the father of the nation, of the country, and his family members, including Sheikh Russel. Bangabandhu's daughter came back in 2009 to power, and then we started the case. At that time, because my father had then passed away, I was the chief special prosecutor, and we held the appeals. We had the appeals heard in the appellate division. That's the highest court of the country, and the killers were convicted and sentenced, meaning that the judgment of the trial court, the judgment of the High Court division, was upheld by the appellate division. We had at that time 5 killers who were in captivity, and their execution was carried out, meaning, and then we got one more killer very recently, and his sentence also has been carried out. We have of the killers, we have 5 of them who are still absconding. Of the 5, we know the whereabouts of 2 of them. One is in the United States of America, and the other is in Canada.
You're referring to Rashid Chaudhary and Noor Chaudhary?
Yes, I'll mention the names. Unfortunately, you see, in Canada, they say that they do not accept the death penalty as punishment, and that is cruel, and therefore any country which has death penalty as punishment for any crime, they are not willing to send a person who has been either charged with a crime which is punishable by death, or he has been sentenced to death for committing a crime. I find I don't find it logical, because you see, from the standpoint of suffering, and from the standpoint of seeking and being assured of justice, I find that this is an obstacle to that, and they should be very forthcoming about the punishment of such killers. It's not even safe to keep them there, but they're still there. About A.M. Rashid Chaudhry, who is in the United States, we are still in discussion with the US government, and I'm very hopeful, because in the past we have seen that the US government in 2007 had returned by deporting a killer of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman to Bangladesh. So we expect that A.M. Rashid Chaudhry, we will be able to get A.M. Rashid Chaudhry back. I just want to highlight one point before I finish this. It's that, you see, 18th October, you have mentioned few instances of a single person killing young child, even children which we call babies have been killed in Thailand. We have seen Upholding taking place, where 22 children were killed, 19 children and 3 adults were killed. So you see, what I am saying is that though these killings were, I would say, crimes committed by people who were of not sane mind, but Sheikh Russell's killing was a little different. He was killed by people who at least claimed, I wouldn't say they were of sane mind, but at least claimed that they were of sane mind. And it was a deliberate act of murder. So, you see, 18th October is a day that we will always remember as a time when we reflect and when we take a resolve that such kind of killing of children or such kind of killing of any human being cannot take place, and we will keep on saying that Sheikh Russel stands for that. Sheikh Russell's death is a testament to that. So that is why we have 18th October as Sheikh Russell Day, and a day when we believe that Sheikh Russell's death will at least bring about more sense in the society that such things should not happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Law Minister, and I'm sure that our viewers and everyone in Bangladesh of sane mind would be hoping to see your endeavors of bringing back these fugitive killers successful. And I would like to, for a concluding remark from Professor Dr. Mizan, and I would like to just ask you to highlight the point that Sir mentioned about Canada having this legal requirement of not sending anybody where he is charged with a crime which carries the death penalty or is actually sentenced of death penalty. How do you see it as a jurist?
Well, you see, in my opinion, these are very flimsy grounds. As a matter of fact, we can call it flimsy political ground. To my students of international law, and when I teach them extradition, I always tell them that, you see, when political offenses are excluded from extradition, so qualifying or identifying an offense to be a political offense itself is a political act. So that we should never forget, number one. Number two, when we are talking about these fugitives, when we are talking about bringing them to justice, the reason is not for revenge, but it's of a more, I think, higher order, more philosophical, more jurisprudential in the sense, as we can use the Spanish phraseology, which is used in terms of to address fascism, is nunca más, never again. Never again should there be an offense like killing of an innocent child deliberately, in full knowledge and sane mind. Though the law minister said that they are not of sane mind in his opinion, but they claimed themselves to be sane, and they claimed that they are the killers. So this must not happen in history. And let me just tell you that when we're talking about the rights of the child or the children, human rights do not exist in a vacuum. There has to be some content in it, and the content can be created through creating a precedent that Nur Chaudhry is brought back from Canada, and he is punished and he suffers a punishment that has been given through a process of justice delivery, not something which is extrajudicial, not something without the due process of law. So due process of law, rule of law, everything have been sort of followed and given and complied with. And now the punishment has to be incurred by the person, by the perpetrator of this heinous crime. Only then you have content of human rights, and it's not in a vacuum. So this legal precedent must be created, and that is why I agree with Professor Dr. Subramani that we have to remind ourselves every moment, every hour, every day, every month that nunca más, never again are we going to tolerate these kinds of horrendous crimes against children or against humanity.
Thank you, Professor Mizan, and I hope that your message and that of the message by Professor Subramania is heard loudly and widely. For the very last comment of our discussion today, I would like to go to Ms. Aroma Dotto. What should be our resolve on Sheikh Russel Day?
This is a highly political murder of a child, a murder of a father, murder of a nation. Given the reality, what we should take from today, the 18th of October, of the innocent child just being the son of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he had to die. And he laid his life for the people of Bangladesh. And that, I think, that he is a martyr. He is the most honorable martyr to be honored with dignity and remembered throughout the nation, throughout the world, as a mark of protest that it should not ever happen. And we must follow the UN Convention law for protection of child rights. And no children in the world, in this planet, should be killed. And he is a symbol of peace. And I consider Sheikh Russel today as a symbol of peace, dignity, so that not a single child does have this kind of death, because this has not been accepted, and we as a nation still cry, and we will continue to cry as long as we are not in a position to go for the trial as has been claimed by our honorable minister and the jurist here, that this kind of incidents Sheikh Russel has reminded and will be remembered as a martyr who has laid his life for doing justice, and so that human rights violation never occurs, and peace and justice is the main weapon for moving forward. And Sheikh Russel is the symbol of peace and prosperity and dignity to follow the fundamental of human rights and children's rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dotto, and I thank our Honorable Law Minister and Professor Mizan for giving us their time in the studio, and also I would like to thank our guests who sent their video message and also connected with us online. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time I have for you today, but let us end on that high note. Never again should any child have to witness what Sheikh Russel had to witness. Never again should any child have to experience what Sheikh Russel had to experience on that fateful day. Let us take a strong resolve to do our best from each of our positions to make not only this country but also the world a more safer place for our children. I bid you all farewell. Good day.